Dr. Lawrence Burton was recently in Oklahoma to explain and establish his cancer treatment center. Burton's treatment, a blood fraction serum, has not been approved by the Food and Drug Administration, but many believe it to be an alternative cancer treatment, if not a cure. Representative Carl Twidwell, who was instrumental in passing legislation to bring Burton's clinic here, now says his treatment may be an alternative Oklahomans never have. He charges that the state health department is taking too much time to establish the licensing procedure.
I can see that that they're not going to abide by the state law, which says 60 days. That date would be, the governor signed the bill, I think, March the 2nd. So that date would be May the 1st, would be the 60-day time limit. And at this time, there's been no progress made, to my knowledge, as far as the licensing procedures are concerned.
State Health Department officials weren't available for comment, but the final word about Dr. Burton's clinic in Oklahoma must come from this office. And for the thousands of Oklahomans battling cancer, that word won't come too soon. Action 4 will follow the story and keep you up to date on if or when Dr. Burton's clinic will be a reality for Oklahomans. Debbie Mash, Action 4 at the State Health Department.
Some people apparently take pride in breaking the law. Some people apparently take pride in climbing a 1,457-foot tower, then jumping, of course, to open a parachute seconds later. This is what two people did this morning about 5:30. KTVY studio cameraman Jim Weimer witnessed the jump on his way into work.
The chutes were square, and I don't know anything about parachuting, but it looked to me like that they didn't have awfully good control when they were getting closer to the bottom of the jump. Closer to the ground, it was kind of rugged looking.
Authorities were called, but the thrill seekers escaped. They left this yellow wind streamer. Officials suspect it was used to determine wind direction and speed. This is not the first time this stunt has been pulled. In August of last year, 4 people jumped. All of them escaped. One jumper left this small plaque.
You can build fences, you can put locks there to keep the honest people out and the people that don't want to cause problems. If somebody decides they want to do something like this, there's not going to be much way of keeping them out. Hopefully, though, we'll catch them someday, or maybe, you know, after the other old boy that jumped off the tower the last time, then he made that jump, where was it, in Colorado, and got killed. We thought maybe that might teach him a lesson, but obviously it hasn't.
The transmitter supervisor says jumping from the tower is extremely dangerous. So far, he adds, the thrill seekers have been lucky. Ben McCain, Action 4, Oklahoma City.
The preliminary witness information that I have at this time is that they apparently were sitting in the kitchen area, at which time the victim was in a chair in the living room area when the shot was heard. Again, we're still trying to determine through our investigation exactly what took place, and we are investigating it as a homicide.
Darryl Richard Knox was buried in Perkins, Oklahoma 1 week ago. On April 17th, Knox was stopped for questioning by the Stillwater police. According to police, Knox sped away in this car. After busting through a roadblock, he collided with a police car. Officer Richard Vaughn approached Knox's car with his gun drawn. He thought he saw a gun in Knox's hand. Vaughn fired one shot into Knox's mouth. Stillwater District Attorney James Langley reviewed the case and determined criminal charges should not be brought against Vaughn. But Knox's family isn't satisfied, and they've hired attorneys to look into the matter.
I think that you cannot ever take anybody's life lightly. And I think that Darryl Knox's life was as valuable as anyone's, and I think it deserves close scrutiny.
Walke said the fact that Knox was shot at close range is one reason he'll examine the case more closely. Bill Ross, Action 4 in Del City.
Co-counsel on the case.
In June of 1980, fire destroyed a historic building. It was the Livestock Exchange Building at the Oklahoma National Stockyards. Since that time, livestock industry officials have been making their home here on this parking lot at the yards. But that's all changing. They're moving to a new home.
The focal point for the stockyards through the years was the Livestock Exchange Building. That's where the livestock producers were paid for their livestock. If any information was needed, people came to the Livestock Exchange Building. This new building just reinforces again the concept that the Oklahoma National Stockyards and the people that operate here plan on being here another 70 years in this new building.
An atrium is in the middle of the 40,000 square foot building. Not only will there be spacious offices, but also a restaurant. It's been a long wait, but Hall says livestock industry officials should be moved into the new exchange building by Friday. Ben McCain, Action 4, at the Oklahoma National Stockyards.
The Canadian County Youth Shelter has been housed in this building since 1974. But there's not enough room here for all the children who need to be helped. Shelter officials want more space, but so far, their calls for help have gone unheeded. This house parent is one of two who work at the shelter. She requested that we not put any of the children staying at the shelter on camera. The children she supervises have problems. They've either had run-ins with the law or they've been abused at home. There's only room for 4 kids at the shelter right now. But shelter director Linda Rice says twice that many Canadian County youths may need help at any given time. Despite the problems, Rice remains an optimist.
I think in very positive terms. I think we will get a building and we will be able to expand the services that we desperately need here in Canadian County, and we will be able to provide the services to the kids here.
The plumbing and other problems at the current shelter can be fixed if the flow of funds from the legislature is adequate. But since economic times are tough, there are no guarantees money will be running freely. Bill Ross, Action 4 in El Reno.
The Enid State School has been the target of recent charges of physical and sexual abuse by staff workers. Those allegations are being checked out by state and federal investigators. A new charge has surfaced in the past week. A 21-year-old staff member is accused of beating up a 13-year-old student in this dormitory last Thursday.
When the direct care staff assumed their duties on the second shift, they noted this resident who had evidence of injury, and in discussing this thing and reporting it, they determined that there had not been an accident report. Consequently, a given individual was suspicioned as the person who had, at the very least, violated our regulation that prohibits corporal punishment, and consequently we notified child welfare. They and the Enid City Police came out and investigated the situation very promptly, and on the basis of their investigation, I understand that they have filed charges at this time.
Foy Bobby Cates has been suspended from his job without pay while he awaits a preliminary hearing next month on the patient beating charge. If convicted of the complaint, Cates could face up to 5 years in prison plus a $500 fine. Bobby Cates' problems won't end here at the Garfield County Courthouse. Besides the criminal charge, if he wants his old job back, he'll have to face administrative sanctions. And with the recent publicity surrounding allegations of child abuse in state-run institutions, you know the State Department of Human Services will be taking a tough look at anyone accused of mistreating students in its schools. Scott Wallace, Action 4 in Enid.
Some workers at the Western Electric plant are going to be moved to different jobs within the next 2 weeks. The workers assemble and test computers that Bell Telephone uses to route calls. The bigger computers can handle 250,000 calls an hour. But as the economy has gone sour, Bell Telephone simply hasn't ordered as much equipment. Western Electric spokesman Ed Beltram says a lot of workers are going to be affected, but the company expects things to pick up if the economy improves by 1983.
We're talking about 309 moves. Now, some of those will be lateral, some of those will be a step back. But however, we expect most of the people to be going back up in grades early next year.
Beltram also said Oklahoma City workers aren't the only ones being affected. He said orders are down at many Western Electric plants. The workers affected are members of the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers. The union local had a meeting Thursday afternoon to discuss the situation. The meeting was closed to the public, but union member Fred Castile said Western Electric wasn't treating experienced workers fairly.
These people are not going back to their old jobs. They're being surplused and being downgraded to lesser jobs. In good faith, these people took a job by projected means of the company. Now they're being mistreated.
Castile said the union hopes to work things out at the negotiating table, and there are no plans to strike Western Electric. Bill Ross, Action 4 at Western Electric quarters.
Don't get me wet, let's not yet.
It's pretty common for people in Oklahoma County to buy a bottle or two for the weekend.
But the Highway Patrol says you better take that bottle straight home because they're cracking down on drunk drivers.
The Oklahoma Highway Patrol and Oklahoma City Police checked for drunk drivers last October. The Highway Patrol started a similar program on Friday. Officers patrolled interstates in Oklahoma County. Saturday night was McLean County's turn. There were 26 arrests for DUI, 40 arrests for other driving-related violations, 340 total arrests, and 314 warnings were issued. Gene Lockwood is in charge of the crackdown.
I think when the general public becomes aware of the fact that we are out there in numbers and we are not going to tolerate the drinking driver, we are not going to tolerate the speeder, that as they become aware of this, they'll adjust their driving habits accordingly.
It's not just nighttime drivers who need to be careful. The Saturday operation began at 6:30, and the Highway Patrol is planning to do this every weekend in May in Oklahoma County and surrounding counties. So it might be a good idea to either stop drinking or stay off the road. Bill Ross, Action 4.
No one will be allowed to stay on active duty or in the reserve component that either uses or traffics drugs. We're not going to tolerate it. And right now we're testing everyone, officers as well as staff, NCOs, and enlisted. And our policy is this: if in fact you're an officer or a staff NCO and you've been determined and detected to be a trafficker or a user of drugs, you're summarily dismissed. There's no second chance. If you're enlisted, you're allowed a second chance. What we have simply done in the last 6 or 7 months is turn the tide of peer pressure. Now youngsters are turning people in who are trafficking or who are using drugs.
Altus Air Force Base was first to report it had been hit by one of many tornadoes in the area. The tornado destruction could easily be traced by scores of cars and trucks smashed on the base parking lots. Military personnel were able to escape with only minor injuries, and what used to be part of the barracks was now wrapped around a gas station, thus forcing hundreds of people to find other housing. Damage will run well into the millions. When the storm finally cleared, officials discovered many personal belongings were ruined. Cars were not the only vehicles affected by the tornadoes.
There was some damage to the C-5 aircraft. How much, I don't know yet. The planes, while they were sitting on the flight line, were turned at an angle when the tornado came through. I did see that myself.
The tornado didn't stop at the Air Force Base. It then moved northeast to the small community of Friendship, where it destroyed everything in its path, but this time also taking human lives and sending several people to the hospital. Dead are 25-year-old Rhoda Price and 4-year-old Susan Cook, who were in a trailer house when the twister caught them by surprise. In just a matter of a few seconds, 4 mobile homes were leveled and debris spread for at least a mile.
The weather got real bad, so we went down to the tornado shelter. We got everybody out of our park, which is about a mile down the road. And these people here, I guess they just didn't know, didn't listen to the weather or whatever. It really messed this place up, though.
Neighbors did what they could to collect items still usable. Darkness made the task even more difficult, along with downed power lines. The force of the tornado was evident by trucks bent over and thrown around like huge toys. Officials have warned people to stay away from the storm area unless they have business there. Work crews expect it will be days before the town can start rebuilding. Ed Stewart, Action 4 in Friendship, Oklahoma.
Hey, right now we're in a holding pattern. We've got some moderate thunderstorms building up to the south and southwest of Lawton. Doesn't appear to be anything of very heavy intensity down there at the present time. We've got one cell between Walters and Geronimo in this area here that's been kind of building up and then backing off a little bit, but I haven't seen anything really severe or real heavy in that area.
No funnel sighted?
No funnel sighted at this time, and we haven't really had any since early this morning sighted.
Heavy rains or high winds?
We've had some rain, but no real high winds. This last system that came through that affected Vernon this afternoon didn't really, when it got here, didn't really have very high winds in it, 25 miles an hour, probably tops here.
South Canadian River water is returning to its normal channel. Some say it was the worst flood in 30 years, but others say it's been longer than that for the area. Some residents are cleaning up their water-soaked property, but Norman City officials say it may be wiser to wait.
Based upon the weather forecast that we've received, in the drainage basin and South Canadian River in the western part of the state, we feel it's not advisable for these persons that were affected by flooding to begin cleanup operations today and maybe even early tomorrow, that there is a possibility of additional water this weekend to come into the community. And we're waiting to see what's happening with the weather today and tonight, the amount of rainfall that's received, look at some check stations, and then hopefully, we won't be affected. But we want to say don't spend a lot of time and effort that you may have to be redoing in the next few days. So we're telling everybody just to kind of hold on right now at the present time, and we'll know sometime tomorrow whether we'll get additional water or not.
Whether it was the worst flood in 30 or 60 years doesn't really matter right now. The point is, it may not be anywhere near that long before the water starts rising again. This weekend, perhaps. It all depends on Oklahoma's unpredictable weather. Residents anxious to get things back to normal may have to wait a little longer. Ted Brown, Action 4 in Norman.
Street Department officials say the recent downpours caused this problem on a bridge at the Oklahoma City Zoo. The bridge is located close to the intersection of Northeast 50th and Grand Boulevard near the zoo lake. A zoo employee spotted the problem yesterday afternoon. The city was notified, and crews then blocked the area entering Northeast 50th and Eastern.
It's going to have an interesting impact on traffic. Grand Boulevard is a major artery to the zoo from I-35. And so I think we will have some serious traffic problems on weekends.
Zoo employees began draining the lake last night to prevent further damage. They say it'll take about 2 weeks to complete the task. If you're planning on visiting the Oklahoma City Zoo this weekend, you can get here by way of Eastern or by taking the 36th Street exit off of I-35. Officials aren't sure how long the street will be closed. Ben McCain, Action 4 at the Oklahoma City Zoo.
getting fuel can consume a large portion in development. Because if you can't repatriate dividends and profits, you'll be wondering, Lesotho is such a small country. Is investment in Lesotho? Because if you come as competitors, then of course you will strangle the petty business people or the petty farmer or the petty rural woman who's trying to do her own thing in her small way. And yet if you come as partners in development, you will help us to attain the goals which we have set for ourselves in our development plans.
Marching to the cadence of a call. First glance, it might appear to be military boot camp, but these troops are civilians. They're members of the American Legion's Boys State.
If you can't count that high, use your fingers.
The high schoolers are spending a week in Oklahoma City learning about leadership and state government. They'll listen to state leaders later this week and then try their own hand at lawmaking. The sponsors hope the boys will learn citizenship skills which will last a lifetime. Hopefully, they'll also learn how to march. Scott Wallace, Action 4 in Edmond.
The savings will vary depending on the school, from around $50,000 annually in operating costs to over $100,000 annually in operating costs, and it depends on the size of the building, its age, and the staffing.